Let's introduce our guests for the morning. We have in the studio Marcus Gavia Dampa, the National President for Team of Popular Youth. What's that?
Team of Popular Youth? Oh, it's a youth organization based on empowering the youth. Yeah.
Where are you based? In Accra?
Oh, we are everywhere in Ghana. Yes, we are not in Accra. You know, we have country reps or constituency, reps. So we are not in Accra.
Political, but why are you constituency based?
Oh, because we can get in touch with everybody. We want to get in touch with every nook and cranny in the society. So that is why it is like that. And we are even down to the polling stations there. Because if you want to get the people, they are there, down there, not Accra or the national level. That is why it's like polling stations.
Polling.
Yeah, polling stations.
Election hasn't come, so I'm wondering why I mentioned it.
Oh, it's not.
But don't worry, it's just one reason. Kofi Asamoah, I also know very well. He is the National Secretary for the Progressive People's Party, Party Papa. Right. Yeah. I hear your party, or is it your youth organizer?
Yes.
Is embarking on a lonesome demonstration, sole demonstration.
Normally, you have demonstrations being
organized. It's raining in Accra. Is it not based in Accra?
Organizations. It's in Accra, yes. From the Bradsport to, I understand the police told him that they have a demonstration route in Ghana.
Okay.
So through the Independence Avenue and end at the Hearts Park.
So what would he be doing? Hoisting a flag or holding a flag?
I will join him. So we'll see what he does. I'm sure he'll be speaking on his way there. He's called for support, but it's a one-man demonstration because normally you have political parties and some recognized groups leading the advocacy for certain public demonstration to occur. But this is an individual initiative, and he hopes to get people to join him. I myself, when I finish, I change into my red outfit and join him. I think he's demonstrating against the closure of the Polytechnics, if you like, or the virtual closure, because he used to be a Polytechnic student, and he knows the effect of the strike by the POTAG on the students. And I think that is what he wants to drum home. And secondly, to bring attention to the crisis as we have now.
What crisis do we have? Do we have a crisis?
We do have a crisis, and we don't need to say it.
What crisis?
The economic situation.
Oh, okay, we'll discuss all that. Don't worry. Don't take the wind out of my sails.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
right.
So now let's talk about the POTAG strike. We've had a reaction from the Deputy Minister of Education in charge of tertiary education.
Yeah.
And he has said that, well, it's not as if that government owes lecturers countrywide, and that also include Polytechnic teachers salaries, but the concern has been for their book and research allowance. Yes. And that's why they're on strike.
Yeah.
Is that a main thing for them to be on strike, is it?
Well, I listened to the minister myself last night.
You did?
Yes, and he was talking about, he mentioned the fact that they have paid lecturers, they have paid POTAG and UTAG as well. But the issue was not our salaries. Everybody knows that the Polytechnic lecturers have been talking about research and book allowance. So if you come and say that you've paid them salaries, you are diverting the issue. He needed to have stayed focused and said that this is it their demand legitimate or not? So if you come and throw in externalities, salaries and so on, you are diverting attention from the very issues that the Polytechnic teachers have put forward. They are not complaining about non-payment of salaries or some kind of allowances. They are complaining about research and book allowance. And the minister said that these are supposed to be paid every year. And what they do is that in the previous year, they pay it an academic year basis. So they paid the last one, 2012, 2013, sometimes in September 2013. So if these POTAG people are reasonable, probably they should wait till the same time this year before they demand the 2013, 2014 one. But he also mentioned something very instructive, that government intends to suspend this whole issue of payment of research and book allowance, and to some fund that he called research fund. So government doesn't intend to pay them this time. So that is what has incensed the POTAG people, that they may not get that research and book allowance. So that is why they are on strike.
Well, already we've had some of the lecturers say the salaries are insignificant. The allowance itself is insignificant, and now that it's not been paid for some time, they are even more worried about the subject. But you think that's a bigger subject or a bigger rationale to go on strike?
Well, I think that that is not a bigger rationale to go on strike, because we've been talking about this book and research allowances over the years. There's Polytechnic teachers or lecturers in the universities, were given these amounts of money to do research for the development of education in the country. But you would realize that it is very difficult to actually follow and monitor whatever work they are doing. You see, so now government is saying that, okay, let us all put together a fund called research fund, so that if you have something to do which you think is significant to help the education of this country, then you apply for that fund and take it.
Let me ask you, let me tell you how it works for tertiary teachers, lecturers. You're supposed to be undertaking research, undertaking publications, because they're part of not only your assessment but also your development as a lecturer in a tertiary institution and your contribution to the academic world. Okay? So how does it become an issue where there's a central fund and somebody will have to go and apply and access individually, when you can do the allocations as it is being done now to each individual, and then they can undertake the research and the publications they want?
No, I think that all these issues were looked at, all these issues were followed, and I think there was some research about this whole thing. The issue is that whether those monies given out in the past were really used for that, because in the past the lecturers were just given the money, okay, go and do research. Every year you will see sometimes some of them will come out in a group and come up with something that they give handouts and those pamphlets and everything out. Those things, they give them out.
Don't you think that's belittling the point?
I am not belittling the point. The thing is that we really need to actually do proper thing with the money that we are given. In other jurisdictions, these monies are just put in a fund that people apply, and then they are given. Which universities in the world do that? That you have to be given a research fund every year and all that. But coming to the POTAG strike, I also listened to the minister. The minister is saying that, the period they are even going on strike has not elapsed, because the money is paid September every year, and this period is still there. So why would you go on strike? You should go and then, talk about these issues with government. And if the time of this payment passes, then you can say that you want to do something. Because these are the issues that we have to look for.
Is it because perhaps there's some level of distrust for government, because they will make promises and perhaps also not fulfill those promises, and so that anxiety is there, making the Polytechnic teachers very euphoric?
Yeah, but the minister made it clear that they're not going to pay. The intention of government is to consolidate these individual payments, as you put it, of research allowances to POTAG and even UTAG members into a national research fund. So they know ahead of time that even if they wait till September, as the minister alluded to, nothing will come.
That's not proper.
That is, yes, because that is why they said that let government, if government really intends to pay within that period or in consonance with its attitude in terms of the payment, September of every year, give a commitment to it. But here we have a minister saying the intention of government this time around is to suspend such a facility and put it in a consolidated fund that you have to go and apply for. And they are not ready for that. As to whether it is enough ground for them to go on strike, it's debatable. I don't really think that it's justifiable enough, and because probably the reason why they are on strike is not necessarily because of the non-payment, it's because it may not happen at all. So so that is their fear. If they know it will be paid, they've gotten their salaries, like the minister said, every other things are running smoothly. So the issue is not really about the non-payment. The issue really has to do with whether that facility will remain at some point in time post September 2014, and that the minister, from what I gathered from him, is that it's not going to happen. So it's a different issue now as to the future of research allowance, so to speak. So that is what we have to tackle. So if they have to do or take some measures or some actions to be able to bring home a certain reform agenda and some discussion around the modalities for, if you like, assessing the fund. You know, in Ghana, we create a lot of bureaucracies around us, burden government officials or public officials and so on. If the system is so simple that there's a figure that cuts across 100 cedi or 200 cedi or 500 cedi, something small that they're even complaining about, that they can be assured of that even if you wait to the last minute, by September it will come. It is an easier way to administer. Now, this fund, it's some nebulous thing we will create. Who can assess it? What conditions must be met before we assess it? We are going to create another public civil service institution, print papers, fill forms,
create bureaucracy.
No,
I think that
so and some people will be excluded from assessing it. So, well, because yes, you need to. For example, scholarship is not open to everybody. You understand? But if you are paying school fees for everybody, we know that this is the direction. Everybody come and benefit.
No,
so
but I think that
there's a certain fear, and I think that fear is well grounded.
The point I mentioned earlier is about government, and I think it's in the interest of all Ghanaians to actually follow the research our learned people are doing. And so this fund is going to coordinate all those things so that we will be able to follow up whoever is doing what in what field and how is going to be used for national development. If that is not going to happen, everything is just left like that.
From all that you have heard from the quarters of government, is that the rationale?
Yeah, I think that is the rationale. There is not all.
You think, or you know?
No, I know that is the rationale.
Right.
That is the rationale because in the past, who was monitoring all these things in the past? Government. We've done so much research in this country. Nothing is being done about that. So now government is saying that okay, fine, let's all come together. This is not about giving money out to people just for the sake of it. Here, I will tell you, there are so many things that people complain about, and you ask yourself why, whether they are justified or not. I believe that the Polytechnic teachers or lecturers are learned persons, and these arguments can be carried to the education minister. Let them do some credible research.
So you have a feeling that perhaps they haven't deepened their
negotiations, their dialogue. They haven't deepened that. No, they haven't deepened that. They haven't gone to any level for them to say that government is saying this. Now everybody is just making prejudicial statements, then that is not going to help us because you need to know that this is the fact. You are not aware whether government will not listen to you. The September thing is not yet up.
Well, your point has been made, but yes. I don't know whether your point is whether you're making prejudicial statement, because as far as I know, this is not before any court of law. So. but do you think that perhaps they need to intensify? I wish that my producer can get maybe the head of POTAG or the national president of POTAG, something. We can even speak to them. But on this very subject, do you think that we also need to, as a matter of urgency, then get into the mindset of the Polytechnic teachers, because they had threatened, and the 21 day as stated per the regulation of the various polytechnics, just like the universities, had elapsed. They had gone they had gone on recess. Before then they had suspended lecturing and etc. So do you think that perhaps we need to deepen the subject of dialogue with government on this very subject?
Well, I think so. I don't know why my brother is saying Marcus is saying that from where I sit, I think the minister made government's intentions clear. So the issue of even waiting till September does not arise any longer. So it's government position is that no payment again, research fund. the POTAG people are saying we need commitment from government that you will pay it even when it's December 2014. You understand? That commitment, government is refusing to write to POTAG. So there have been some negotiations and there have been some interactions between POTAG and government. But their two positions are these. We want commitment from you that you pay. Government says that we don't longer have the intention to pay as we have been paying, but we want to put them in a fund.
In a central fund?
In a central fund. So
that will be accessed, is it by the various institutions?
Oh, and yeah, it's not even POTAG only.
Yeah, I know, by the various tertiary institutions.
Yes, tertiary institutions.
Okay, so let's say Cape Coast will get their own. So if you are a lecturer that you want to access, you access from the Cape Coast
No, it's
national.
Going to be a national
fund.
National thing.
So I don't know how the modalities will. So sometimes these things come up. Governments have intention. They put it out.
The communication is not adequately.
It's adequate.
It's not adequately done.
Roland,
So as a result of that,
Roland, I think that
we need some level of civility in our discussion. So I know you're going to have your time.
So I mean, if I had more information from government position that this is how it's going to be done. For example, you raise a very important point, whether it is going to be institutional based. Research fund for UCC, research fund for Lagos.
Well, not necessarily that we have a national research fund, but then we have allocations for each tertiary institution. Then, so that if the teacher wants to access, the lecturer from a certain tertiary institution will access from the account of the institution. That's what I mean.
But what qualifies you? Do you need to make a proposal? Do you need to write something?
So it's still very much opaque as far as
yes.
There's no clarity on.
Yes. So probably if government had put a lot more information out there, it may even convince the POTAG.
That brings us to the subject of dialogue. Perhaps dialogue has not been inadequate.
The point I want to make is that those people are learned persons. Now, why are they against this research fund? What is the rationale behind?
What do you think?
I don't know. I don't know what they think. I don't know whether they think that there's going to be some difficulties, some bottlenecks, or some hindrances and all that. If you think that is going to be the case, then why don't you talk to government about this? I expected them to have been telling Ghanaians that
they don't seem to trust government on this subject. Because if they did, they would have taken government's word for it.
Yeah. No.
Because each time they had intended to go on strike or even given that very ultimatum, government had come out to respond. But then they don't take government's word for it.
Every country's education goes through transformation.
And you think this is a transformational process?
And so we are going through.
The strikes, following that, the suspension of the lecturing in various tertiary institutions.
These are not the things. Reforms. There are reforms coming up. This is a reform. It is a reform. I mean, if hitherto you were taking, allowances or research and book allowances, and now government is saying that, okay, we would like to properly channel that into a national fund, then I expected the learned Polytechnic lecturers to have come out to tell Ghanaians or government that, okay, we accept this, but we would like the fund to be like this, like the point you mentioned, whether it's going to be institutional-based thing or how the modalities of assessing the fund should be discussed than standing against this whole thing, and you don't know the reason why they are standing against it. I can't tell why they are standing against it, or maybe it's because it's some kind of money that can go freely to all of them at every time. That is why they think that should be maintained. But we think that there should be quality work here, there should be quality management of things. So I expect that is one thing for us to also be doing. If there is a government policy, you see everybody coming up, those that are going to be affected, speaking against it and all that. But there's a time for us to sit down with government, dialogue, and think about how the fund is going to be managed. Let them bring proposals to government. I think if they do that, nothing will happen.
Kofi, in your own observation, do you think that having a centralized, consolidated research fund is better than government just spreading money and giving to each lecturer each year, and whether the money is used for the specific purpose or not is not tracked, etc.?
Well, I think...
Does it also make good sense for prudent public resource management or public fund management or public resource allocation?
Yes, you make a lot of sense with the monitoring. Whether we're just not throwing money out there and wasting it and so on and so
this
forth.
one is a better option.
It's a centralized. It may not necessarily be the centralized fund approach. But if you are supposed to monitor, there are different ways that you can monitor. So if the objective is to monitor and have value for money in terms of the monies that government gives to Polytechnic lecturers or even lecturers for research, then they should have a way of monitoring it. But if after their study, the best approach is to have a central fund, then it means that we need to be able to know the modalities, who qualifies. Doesn't mean that all lecturers it's open to all lecturers, but what do you do to assess it? Exactly. And what is the post-assessment procedures that makes it possible for government to monitor if monitoring and getting value for money is the objective? Now, you see, the reason why I'm just trying to think for the Polytechnic teachers is this. You see, you can't establish a fund by administrative fiat. Okay, you need to go through Parliament, the legislative process. There's no bill to that effect. I don't know, I may be corrected. What is the time frame? This is July. So if you owe somebody and you have, this is July, August, September, so you have 2 months to expire the period that you are supposed to pay somebody an allowance. So if 2 months to the time that you are due somebody a certain amount is when you are introducing a discussion of about an establishment of a fund, which process will take another 6 months or so to establish. Then you are being, if you like, trying to swerve the POTAG people.
Okay, I get your point. We have on the line the president of POTAG, Kumasi Polytechnic chapter, Edmond Opong Pepra. A very good morning to you, Mr. Pepra.
Good morning.
Okay, now the strike action you embarked on, following which we had suspension of your own activities within the polytechnics. Is it only because of the book and research allowances and vis-a-vis your opposition to the establishment of a national research fund by the Ministry of Education or by government?
Yes, thank you very much. I should say that presently POTAG strike action is all about the book and research allowance. And I must say that we've been on strike for close to 2 months now. Yes, so definitely it's about the book and research allowance.
What's your difficulty with government's intention to establish a consolidated national fund, that is the National Research Fund, for you to access, that is if you need it. If you don't, you stay put for the year?
Yes, thank you very much. I believe that we have said it on countless occasions, and I will reiterate.
Please do.
That we have no objection to the setting up of the National Research Fund. We think it is a good idea, so government should go ahead to establish it. Only we are of the opinion that the National Research Fund cannot replace POTAG's book and research allowance.
Why?
And why I'm saying that is that the two are completely different. If you look at the focus of the National Research Fund, it is for the whole country. Anybody at all who feels like having research or undertaking research can go to access it. But POTAG's book and research allowance is specifically part of our conditions of service. And per the conditions of service, if you want to vary, what you have to do is to present a proposal to the 3 parties who are signatories to the conditions of service. These are COP, that's Conference of Rectors of Polytechnic, POTAG, and then the government itself is a signatory to it. So if you want to vary any part of it, you have to present a proposal. Then the parties will sit down and then consider it. The outcome then becomes the rule. But government cannot just say that because I have a project or I have a proposal to establish a national research fund, automatically POTAG book and research allowance is done away. No, that cannot happen.
Okay.
Secondly, ours is in 2 parts and they are all separate. The book allowance is there. It is even far larger than the research allowance before the research allowance. So if you say you are going to establish a national research, how about POTAG's book allowance? You see, the book allowance also cannot be the same as the National Research Fund. And as I speak with you now, we don't even know when that National Research Fund is going to be in place how to assess it, what are the modalities that you go through. So the two cannot be taken as the same.
Is government in arrears of the payment of perhaps the current year's book and research allowance?
Yes, I would say that government is in arrears for the last academic year.
You mean the academic year that just passed?
Just passed, yes. What happens is that usually at the beginning of the year, that's when we are in the second semester of the academic year. Specifically around February, POTAG will write to the Fair Wages and then Salaries Commission to notify them that it is due, the book and research allowance is due. Then Fair Wages would also write to the NCT, that's National Council for Tertiary Education, for them to start the process. National Council for Tertiary Education will also write to the various polytechnics to start processing the data, to bring it. The data will be collated, sent to controller. Then finance would issue authorization for its payment. Therefore, by February, we know that the process has already started. And it is not true when Honorable Kujetu Ablakwa says that it is always paid in advance. If he say
it's not true, you mean he's lying?
He is completely lying. What happened was that last year there were problems with the data. The data could not be collated on time. Therefore, it extended to September. So last year there was a delayed payment, but it does not mean that every year it is paid in September. The actual period for the payment is April, May, because by June academic year ended. Therefore, usually April it is paid in April. By May, at most, it's been paid. So there's no agreement that every year it is paid in September.
Okay.
That is completely false.
Okay, so that's a falsity there.
Yes.
Now,
and then again, let me also be very clear here that if it would be paid in September, by now the process would have begun a long time ago. We initiate the process, we know when. So far, or as I speak with you, no process has started. Therefore, we don't see how government will pay in September. And even if they have any intention of paying in September, government should have notified POTAG of this. We had a meeting with the Minister of Education, Okujetu Ablakwa, was there on the 30th of June. That was just Monday. And the government's position was that, we are pleading that go back to the classroom. Then we asked them, what about the substantive case of the book and research allowance? The minister said that, the Minister of Finance was not around, was not at that particular meeting, so she cannot say anything about the book and research allowance.
Okay, so you're saying that following those meetings and those dialogues you've had with the Ministry of Education, they've reneged on promises made to you, and as a result of that, you think that is
And they have never mentioned anywhere that they were going to pay in September.
Okay, now wait, Mr. Pepper, let's get to the substantive of whatever line items there are on a pay slip. And I know that, well, this is a unionized issue, so I can't just think that it's just a normal reward or motivation issue as far as the HR structure is concerned for ordinary workers. If there are supposed to be allowances, and we have book as well as we have research allowance, and we have a central fund. If we take Ghana as a company, and the central fund is there, whether it's a book or research allowance you need, you're a worker, you have to go access the fund. That is a central fund. So now it's not part of your pay slip. It is not indicated there. Is it not perhaps because people are paid those allowances but necessarily do not use them for a particular year? I do understand you say that it's part of your emolument or your reward scheme for the year.
It will be very false if anybody at all should assume that, POTAG and then other places do not undertake research. For the mere fact that we are able to teach you, for you to learn something to graduate, means that a lot of research has gone into your education.
Okay.
You see, let us understand that before any lecturer comes to stand at all to teach, he must have looked through books. before he...
But is that not part of your work that you also, because for example, before I come and sit here and ask you a question, I may have read something, but I am not asked to be paid. Of course, I'm not saying that I'm a lecturer, so you have to forgive me for this very aspect of my dialogue. But, well, as far as I know, is it not part of your work to get an understanding of existing literature before you come and stand in front of students who perhaps also may know a lot more better than you get to teach them, and thereby impact better knowledge to them? Is that not more logical?
You see, you mentioned understand and fine, and the fact that you come and stand there is the aspect. But you need access to reading material. You need access to books. You need access to internet, and then all that. That's part of the research. You also need to publish. You see, being a lecturer is the only occupation that you are not promoted unless you publish. And I'm very glad to inform you that when you come to Polytechnic, we have several senior lecturers. We have PhD holders. This is an indication that research has been going on. We have several research publications at Polytechnic. And I'm sure other polytechnics as well, if the general public care to know. So that assertion that perhaps they are not using it for its purpose and all that is neither here nor there. And then you see, I'm surprised that Minister of Education, who is a professor, should even allude to the fact that perhaps research might not be going on. You should ask her, how was she able to become a professor if she was not doing any research at all?
But because she did the research, and so if let's say we take Professor Nana Opoku-Agyeman, for example, before she became a professor or before she started her thesis for PhD, etc., then in this very scenario, we have the establishment of a national research fund. She will go and access it from perhaps the UCC if that was where she was, and then she can use that to fund her thesis. As a result of that, when she starts lecturing also or continues to lecture, she can go access it to undertake publications and other research activities. Is that another scenario?
Our stance is that we are not opposed to the establishment of the research fund, but it should only come to augment what exists now. If someone takes his book and research allowance and he thinks it's not enough, it's not adequate, he can go and access that national research fund. Anybody in the country can access that.
Mr. Pepper, so now you think as POTAG you want the research and book allowance to be maintained, and if government wants to, or the Ministry of Education wants to establish a national research fund, so be it. So those should exist side by side.
We are of the opinion that the two are very different. If government has an ambition to establish a research fund, fine, it should go ahead. But that should not mean that POTAG's book and research allowance should cease.
Okay.
It should come to augment.
Is that the fear among members of POTAG? And I'm sure that would also transcend to the other tertiary institutions, that perhaps this is free money you're going to lose.
Well, I will not agree if you say it is free. It is free money. I've already told you what that money is used for, okay. And the fact that we do research and all that is not in contention anywhere. It is not argued in any way that POTAG does not do research.
Well, I guess the point is nobody is saying that POTAG and the other tertiary institutions, their lecturers don't undertake research or even don't do publications. The point is we have a fund. A fund is available. If indeed you want to do it for a particular academic year, you want to do it 10 times, that's your own palaver. You go and access it. Doesn't it make better sense?
As of now, I don't see any fund. I'm not seeing any fund anywhere.
But you are kicking against the fund. The fund has not been established, but you are kicking against it.
We are not kicking. We have not said anywhere that we are against that fund. We say that government should go ahead and.
But you want your allowance to still be in existence.
You see, we cannot forgo what we are taking now for what does not even exist. And we don't know when it's coming to exist. We don't know how much you can access, who can access, and then all that. Okay. You see, it will be very naive for me to say that I will not take my book and the research allowance, but I'll wait for something that is not there to come. No. So what government can do is to go ahead with that fund. The fund should come and then exist. If it comes to exist, POTAG sees that it is there. A member can access this amount or that. This is the modality that you go through before assessing how many people can access every year. If it comes there, it is good. And POTAG says that, okay, now why don't we switch from what we are taking now to that one?
Okay. Fine. Okay, sir. The book and research allowance, of what percentage is it of your basic?
Well, as for that one, I think it will not be very professional.
I don't want you to mention the principal for me. I'm saying that of what percentage of your principal basic is it? I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. Mention your principal for me. Just if it's 10% of my principal basic, I understand it. I mean,
I've not checked the amount.
I was talking about percentage, not the amount. Okay. Thank you thank you very much. I hope when we need a lot more clarification on this very discussion, we'll call you again. You said you're Dr. Opon-Prepra?
I said I am Edmond Opon-Prepra.
Edmond Opon-Prepra.
Opon-Prepra, yes.
Okay.
And then I want it to be very clear that POTAG's book and research allowance is not going to be taken by anybody. Once it is in the law, we have all signed. Until a new proposal has been agreed on, POTAG is going to take it.
Well, thank you very much. And that's the Kumasi Polytechnic POTAG president, Edmond Opon-Prepra, speaking to us on the subject of their strike action. And I believe if it is not resolved, it will go into the next academic year. If not resolved. Because from what did you tease out of this very discussion?
Yes, it confirms some of the things that I was saying, that
communication has not been adequate.
Yes, that's one. And two, government is introducing this as a discussion about establishment of a fund only to delay their payment of something that is obliged to pay under their terms of conditions of service. So, I mean...
No, the point is government owes them a year.
Government owes them a year.
So government will pay them.
But he's not doing that today.
Okay, this will even be the second year.
Yeah, this will be the different year.
It's not a second. Okay, the academic year is
ended. The one that is ended. I even thought it was September, but he's mentioned
no, but it's still inside. It's not going anywhere.
No,
the academic year is still there.
He said that because of they are supposed to have been paid around April.
May. Yes. So it means there's a delay in the payment, but I don't get the impression that the one we owe you, even before we bring a different mechanism, will be paid. And that is the commitment the POTAG people are seeking. So you don't replace, even if you want to replace, you pay us the old one. That commitment, we don't get it from government. And that is why they are worried. So one, they said they are not against the establishment of a fund. Two, whether they are saying that they want they don't necessarily want the fund to replace the allowance. But that is a debate that can go on, whether looking at the modalities government will bring, we will support government or we will support POTAG. We are yet to decide on how it will work. But the fundamental issue is, by June of 2014, we were owing per a certain terms of conditions that government agreed with POTAG. Government is owing them. So yes, you may have good intentions, we may even support, that is good. But why don't you pay your due?
No, but I listened to Mr. Edmond Opon-Prepra carefully, and then also he confirmed some of the issues that I raised here, that you don't actually figure out what the issue is about, whether they are
I think the issue is clear, and government's issue also is also clear.
No, yeah.
Government says, I want to establish a fund. this other group also says, well,
we don't want our fund to be scrapped.
We are not opposing your fund,
yes,
but don't scrap our allowance.
Our allowance. Oh,
because I think it's because there's an anxiety.
It may not necessarily be don't even scrap our allowance.
They want their allowance to be in existence vis-a-vis the establishment of the fund. Then they'll get to see perhaps how it works.
There's a third one, which is pay us what you already owe us.
Yes. Okay.
Oh, well,
that's the third bit.
No. But when they went on strike, that is the point I'm making. Which teacher, every teacher from primary or from kindergarten level to the university level does the research. Every teacher does that. You go, you read books, you go to the internet, you do all that. I listen to him talking about all these things and then publication. If you want to publish a book, as you asked him, at least that could come up to the National Research Fund. That will be fine. But the fund they are talking about, the allowance they are talking about, I think it's just something that all of them will just want to take and then name it that they are doing research, they are doing, some publication and all that.
Saying, well,
I think that I'm not saying it's a waste of money, but I'm saying that it's not prudent use of national resources.
There are other things that we do that are not prudent use of national.
No, there are that. Of course, those things are there. So that is why we are identifying the issues that we must make sure that we deal with them.
Now let's talk.